She believed she was simply cleaning an old estate to cover her son's medical expenses. Then she heard piano music and discovered a blind boy who hadn't smiled in years. What she didn't realize was that the boy's father, a vampire king, had been watching from the shadows, waiting centuries for someone like her to appear. Clara's hands trembled as she signed the contract. The trembling came not from fear, though the fog outside the employment office was thick enough to suffocate in, but from relief. $300 per week, paid in cash. No questions would be asked. "You begin tonight," the man said. His name was Mr. Corvin, and he wore a suit so black it seemed to absorb the dim lamplight. "The Crimson Palace. Are you familiar with it?" Everyone knew it. The mansion on the mountain where lights never appeared, and no one ever departed. Clara had passed its iron gates countless times, always quickening her pace when the wind carried strange sounds down from the cliffside. "I'm familiar with it," she whispered. "Good." Corvin slid a brass key across the desk. "You will clean only the east wing. Hallways, music room, library. You do not enter the west wing. You do not venture upstairs after sunset, and you do not ask questions." Clara thought of her son, Tommy, coughing in their single-room apartment above the bakery. She thought of the pharmacy bill she couldn't settle, the eviction notice tucked inside her coat pocket. She took the key. The palace loomed ahead like a creature carved from midnight. Clara arrived at dusk, her breath forming clouds in the cold mountain air. The gates opened by themselves. No creak, no groan, just silent surrender. She walked the long gravel path alone, her cleaning supplies rattling in her bag. Mr. Corvin met her at the entrance. "You're punctual. Good. Follow me." Inside, the palace was nothing like she'd imagined. No cobwebs. Just endless marble floors that gleamed like black glass and chandeliers that dripped with crystals but held no candles. The air smelled of old roses and something else. Something metallic she couldn't identify. "The East Wing," Corvin said, gesturing down a corridor. "You'll find your supplies in the closet. Finish by midnight. The door will lock behind you when you leave." He paused. "Do not linger." Then he was gone, his footsteps fading into silence. Clara stood alone in the vast hallway, her heartbeat suddenly loud in her ears. She began working. The floors didn't need much cleaning. They were already spotless, but she scrubbed anyway, losing herself in the rhythm. Dust the banisters, wipe the mirrors. Don't think about how your reflection looks wrong in this light, pale and hollow. Hours passed. The palace remained silent except for her movements. Then, at 11 o'clock, she heard it. Piano music. It drifted through the walls like smoke, soft and sad and achingly beautiful. A melody she'd never heard, but somehow recognized the way you recognize a dream the moment you wake. Clara froze, rag in hand. The music was coming from deeper in the East Wing, past the library, somewhere she hadn't been yet. "Don't ask questions," Corvin had said, but the melody called to her. It sounded like loneliness given form, and Clara knew that feeling too well to ignore it. She followed the sound. The music room was hidden behind a set of double doors carved with roses and thorns. They opened at her touch, and Clara stepped into a space that stole her breath. The room was enormous. Arched ceilings stretched into shadow. Windows climbed the walls, revealing nothing but fog and moonlight. And in the center, beneath a chandelier that glowed with impossible candlelight, sat a grand piano. A boy was playing it. He couldn't have been older than 11. Pale hair fell across his face, almost white in the dim light. His fingers moved over the keys with the grace of someone far older, coaxing out notes that made Clara's chest ache. But his eyes that stopped her heart, they were open, staring straight ahead, but empty, clouded, unseeing. The boy was blind. He stopped playing the moment she entered, his head tilting slightly. "You're not Mr. Corvin." Clara's voice came out smaller than she intended. "No, I'm Clara, the new cleaner. I heard the music and you shouldn't be here after dark." "I know. I'm sorry. I'll go." "Wait." The word hung in the air between them. The boy's expression softened, and for the first time he looked like what he was, a child, a lonely one. "Can you play?" he asked. Clara hesitated. "A little. My mother taught me, but that was a long time ago." "Play with me." It wasn't a command. It was a plea. She should have left, should have run back to the East Wing and finished her work and never looked back. But something in his voice, something fragile and desperate, made her stay. Clara crossed the room and sat beside him on the bench. Her hands hovered over the keys, rough and calloused from years of scrubbing floors. She pressed down, and the piano responded with a gentle chord. The boy smiled. "You remember?" "Remember what?" "The melody." He began to play again, the same haunting tune from before. "Now follow me." And somehow, impossibly, Clara did. Their hands moved together, her clumsy notes weaving through his practiced ones. The music filled the room, and for those few minutes the palace didn't feel cursed. It felt alive. When the last note faded, the boy turned to her. "My name is Eli." "Hello, Eli. Will you come back tomorrow?" I thought of the money, thought of Tommy, thought of the way this strange, sad boy looked at me with eyes that couldn't see, but somehow understood. "Yes," I whispered. "I'll come back." High above them, in the shadows of the balcony, something moved. A figure stood perfectly still, watching, tall, silent. His eyes burned crimson in the dark, fixed on the woman at the piano. And for the first time in a century, King Darius felt his dead heart stir. Clara couldn't stop thinking about the boy. All through the next day, while she fed Tommy his breakfast and walked him to school, while she scrubbed the bakery floors for extra cash, Eli's pale face haunted her thoughts. The way his fingers had danced across the keys, the smile that had cracked through his loneliness like curtain through a light. She returned to the palace that evening with her heart racing. Mr. Corvin said nothing when she arrived, just handed her the key and disappeared into the shadows. Clara went through her cleaning routine faster than before, her eyes constantly drifting toward the hallway that led to the music room. At 11:30, she heard it again. The piano. This time, she didn't hesitate. Eli was waiting for her. He sat at the piano, hands folded in his lap, his head turned toward the door as if he'd heard her footsteps from miles away. "You came back," he said softly. "I promised, didn't I?" His smile was like sunrise. "Most people don't keep promises to me." Clara sat beside him on the bench, and without a word they began to play. Tonight Eli taught her a new melody, something lighter, almost playful. Her mistakes made him laugh, a sound so pure and unexpected that Clara found herself laughing too. "You're improving," Eli said, after our third attempt. "You're a patient teacher."
"I have to be. Father says patience is the only virtue worth having when you live as long as we do." He paused, and his expression shifted, became guarded. I shouldn't have said that. Clara's hands stilled on the keys. "How long have you lived here, Eli?" "Always. I was born in this palace." He traced the edge of a key with one finger. "I've never left. Father says the outside world is too dangerous for someone like me." "Someone blind? Someone different." There was weight in those words. Secrets Clara couldn't begin to understand. She wanted to ask more, but something in Eli's posture warned her away from the subject. Instead, she asked, "Do you have friends? Other children to play with?" Eli shook his head. "Just Father and Mr. Corvin and the others who visit sometimes. But they don't like me much. They say I'm weak." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They say I shouldn't exist." Clara's heart clenched. She reached out and gently took his hand, so cold, like porcelain, and squeezed it. "You're not weak, Eli. You're extraordinary. I've never heard anyone play piano like you do." Mother used to play, before she died. It was a long time ago. I don't remember her face anymore, just her music. He turned his clouded eyes toward Clara, and for a moment, she could have sworn she saw something flicker in their depths, a flash of color, of light. "But when you play with me, I can almost hear her again. Isn't that strange?" Clara didn't know what to say. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. The candles in the chandelier above them flickered, casting dancing shadows across the walls. "Play me something happy," Eli said suddenly. "Something from your life before you came here." Clara thought for a moment, then began to play a simple tune, a lullaby she used to sing to Tommy when he was small. Her voice joined the melody, soft and uncertain. "Sleep now, little bird. The night is long and deep. Dream of morning light and songs you'll one day keep." Eli listened with his head tilted, a gentle smile on his lips. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You have a son," he said. It wasn't a question. "How did you—" "I can hear it in your voice, the way mothers sound when they sing." His expression grew wistful. "He's lucky. So is your father." Eli's laugh was bitter, sharp. "Father doesn't think about luck. He thinks about power, control, keeping the kingdom safe." He stopped himself again, biting his lip. "I talk too much." "No," Clara said gently. "You talk just enough." They played together until midnight, losing themselves in melodies both sad and sweet. When Clara finally stood to leave, Eli caught her hand. "Tomorrow?" he asked, and his voice held such desperate hope that Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "Tomorrow," she promised. She didn't see the figure in the shadows, didn't notice the way crimson eyes tracked her every movement, watched the way she touched his son's shoulder before leaving, heard the tenderness in her voice. Darius remained perfectly still, hidden in darkness, but his fingers gripped the balcony railing so hard the stone cracked beneath them. "Impossible," he thought. "She sounds exactly like her." Darius stood before the enchanting mirror in his study, watching Clara walk home through the fog. She moved quickly, clutching her coat against the cold, her breath forming small clouds in the mountain air. Ordinary, mortal, fragile as glass. Yet something about her made his ancient blood sing in ways he'd forgotten were possible. "You're going to wear a hole in that mirror, Your Majesty." Mr. Corvin had entered without knocking, one of the few liberties Darius allowed him after 3 centuries of service. "She broke the rules," Darius said quietly. "Entered the music room after dark, spoke with Eli. Shall I dismiss her?" "No." The word came out sharper than intended. Darius turned from the mirror, his reflection disappearing into smoke. He moved to the window, looking out over his kingdom of shadows and secrets. "Eli played tonight," he continued. "For the first time since Evangeline's death, he played with joy. Did you hear it?" "The entire palace heard it, sire. The music carried through every hall." 3 years. 3 years since his son had touched the piano with anything but grief. 3 years since those small hands had produced anything but sorrow. And this woman, this cleaning woman with rough hands and a tired smile, had changed that in 2 nights. "Who is she?" Darius asked. Corvin produced a thin folder from his coat. "Clara Whitmore, age 34, widowed 5 years ago, 1 son, Thomas, age 8, works 3 jobs to afford their apartment, medical debts, behind on rent, desperate enough to take a position at the Crimson Palace without asking questions. And before, family, orphaned at 16, mother was a piano teacher who died in a fire, father unknown, no living relatives." Corvin's expression remained neutral. "Quite ordinary, by all accounts.
But nothing about her felt ordinary to Darius. He'd watched her through the mirrors for 2 nights now, watched the way she moved through his palace, careful but curious, frightened but brave. The way she'd sat beside Eli without hesitation, as if his blindness meant nothing, as if his strangeness was invisible to her. And her voice, God, her voice when she sang. It was Evangeline's voice, not identical, but close enough to make his chest ache with phantom pain. The same warmth, the same gentle strength. "Run a deeper search," Darius commanded. "I want to know everything. Where she was born, where she's lived, any connection to—" He stopped himself. "To the queen?" Corvin finished carefully. Darius said nothing. The silence was answer enough. "Sire, you know the laws of reincarnation. A soul can't return intact, even if she were—" "I know the laws, Corvin," Darius said quietly. "I wrote half of them." He turned back to the mirror. With a wave of his hand, the surface rippled, showing him not Clara's journey home, but the music room. Eli was still there, running his fingers over the piano keys without pressing down, his face peaceful in a way Darius hadn't seen in years. His son, his broken, beautiful son, born blind because Darius had tried to resurrect his queen using forbidden blood magic. The spell had failed. Evangeline remained dead, but Eli had paid the price. Cursed from birth, rejected by the vampire court as weak, an embarrassment to the crown. Darius would have burned the world for him, had almost done so several times. "Let her continue working," Darius said finally. "But I want reports every night. Everything she does, everything she says to Eli." "Of course, Your Majesty." "And Corvin," Darius's eyes glowed crimson in the darkness. "If she harms him, if this is some hunter's trick, some elaborate trap, I will make her death last centuries." "Understood, sire." After Corvin left, Darius remained by the window. The sun would rise in 4 hours. He would retreat to his chambers, sleep the dead sleep of his kind, and wake up again tomorrow night to watch her return. He told himself it was caution, protection, a king's duty to guard his heir. But deep in the place where his heart had once beat, Darius knew the truth. He wanted to see her again, wanted to hear that voice, watch those rough hands create beauty from ivory teas, wanted to understand how someone so ordinary could make his son laugh, could make him feel something other than the cold emptiness that had consumed him for 3 years. The mirror showed Clara entering her small apartment, kissing her sleeping son's forehead, and collapsing onto her own bed without even removing her shoes. She looked exhausted. She looked perfect. "Forgive me, Evangeline," Darius whispered to the darkness. "But if fate is cruel enough to send her ghost to haunt me, I'm not strong enough to look away." The candles in his study flickered and died, and the Vampire King smiled for the first time in 3 years. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. Clara fell into a rhythm she couldn't explain. Days belonged to Tommy. Breakfast, school, homework, bedtime stories. Nights belonged to the palace, to music that seemed to pour from somewhere deeper than memory. Every evening she cleaned the East Wing in half the time it should have taken, then rushed to the music room where Eli waited. And every evening they played. "You're improving," Eli said on the 16th night, his fingers dancing across the high keys while Clara handled the low notes. Clara laughed. "You play like you were born doing it." "I was." The words slipped out before he could stop them. His hands stilled. "I mean, I've been playing since I was very young." Clara had learned not to push when Eli's secrets threatened to surface. Instead, she shifted to a lighter melody, and he followed gratefully. But the strangeness was getting harder to ignore. The palace never changed. The candles never burned down. She never saw anyone except Mr. Corvin, and even he appeared and disappeared like smoke.
The mirrors sometimes showed reflections that moved a second too slow. And Eli, sweet, lonely Eli, never seemed to sleep, never seemed to eat, and his hands were always cold as winter stone. "Tell me about the moonlight creatures," Clara said during a pause in their playing. Eli's expression brightened. "Father says I'm not supposed to talk about them, but they're beautiful, Clara. They live in the mountains, in the forest. Some can fly, some can change their shape, some drink from—" He stopped abruptly. "They're just stories, things Father tells me. Do you believe in them?" "I live with them," Eli said simply, then quickly added, "I mean, I live in a place where people believe in them. The villagers. They leave offerings at the gate sometimes. Garlic and crosses and—" He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Silly superstitions." Clara's skin prickled. She'd seen those offerings herself, burned them actually, during her cleaning. She thought they were pranks. "Eli, are you—" She didn't know how to finish the question. "Are you safe here? Are you human? Are you happy?" The boy was quiet for a long moment. His clouded eyes turned toward her, and again she saw that strange flicker of light in their depths. "I am when you're here," he whispered. Something in Clara's chest cracked open. She pulled him into a hug, and he clung to her like a drowning child to driftwood. His body was cold, impossibly cold, but she held him anyway. "I had a dream about you," Eli murmured against her shoulder. "You were standing in sunlight, and your hair was on fire, but you weren't burning. You were laughing, and when you turned around, you had her face." "Whose face?" "Mother's." He pulled back, wiping at his eyes. "But that's impossible. I never saw her face. I was born like this." Clara's heart hammered. "Eli, what happened to your mother?" "She died saving people who hated us. There was a fire in the village. She went to help, but the flames—" His voice broke. "Father says she was too good for this world. Too human." "Too human?" Before Clara could process those words, a sound echoed through the palace. A deep, resonant gong that made the chandelier above them shiver. Eli gasped. "You have to go, now." "What? Why?" "The gathering. I forgot. Father has guests coming tonight. They can't see you. They can't know you've been here. Please, Clara, go." But it was too late. The double doors burst open and a woman glided in. She was stunning. Dark hair cascading down a red gown, skin pale as moonlight, eyes sharp as knives. And when she smiled, Clara saw them. Fangs. "Well, well," she purred, her voice like silk over razors. "What do we have here? The little broken prince has found a pet." Clara couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her mind screamed at her to run, but her legs had turned to stone. More figures appeared behind her, men and women in elegant clothes, all beautiful, all deadly. Their eyes gleamed in the candlelight, gold, silver, crimson, all predators. "Eli," one of them hissed, "does your father know you've been playing with your food?" And in that moment, Clara understood. The palace, the cold, the strangeness, the reason no one ever left. She'd been working for monsters. Time stopped. Not metaphorically, literally. The vampires froze mid-step, their mouths open in silent snarls, and their hands reaching for Clara like statues caught in motion. Even the candles stopped flickering, flames suspended in air. Only Clara could move. Only Clara, and "You have a talent for finding trouble." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Deep, ancient, commanding. A man materialized from the shadows at the far end of the room, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. He was tall, impossibly so, dressed in black that seemed woven from darkness itself. His hair fell past his shoulders, dark as midnight, framing a face that could have been carved by a master sculptor. Sharp cheekbones,
a strong jaw, lips that held the ghost of cruelty. But it was his eyes that paralyzed her, crimson, glowing, infinite. "Father," Eli's voice was small, terrified. The king, Clara realized with dawning horror, moved toward them with steps that made no sound. The frozen vampires parted like a curtain around him, their bodies shifting in suspended time to clear his path. "She broke the rules," Eli said quickly. "It's my fault. I asked her to stay. Please don't—" Silent, Eli. The command was gentle, but absolute. The king's eyes never left Clara. "You are Clara Whitmore, janitor, mother, widow." He tilted his head. "Trespasser." Clara's voice came out as a whisper. "What are you?" "I think you know. The question is, what are you?" "I'm nobody. Just someone trying to feed her son. Nobody." He smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. "Nobody who plays piano like a lost queen. Nobody who makes my son laugh. Nobody whose scent drives my court into a feeding frenzy." He leaned closer, and Clara caught a smell like winter rain and old blood. "Nobody who should have died the moment she walked through my gates." "Are you going to kill me?" "I'm deciding."
The honesty was somehow worse than a threat. Clara's eyes darted to Eli, who stood frozen by the piano, tears streaming down his face. "He's just a boy," Clara said. "Whatever I did wrong, don't punish him for it." Something flickered across the king's face. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "You would bargain for him? A creature you barely know? He's lonely. He's kind. He deserves better than—" She gestured at the frozen vampires, their faces twisted with hunger. "Better than this." The king was silent for a long moment. Then he moved faster than Clara's eyes could follow, his hand suddenly gripping her chin, tilting her face toward the light. His touch was ice itself. "Your face, your voice, the way you hold yourself." His thumb traced her cheekbone, almost tender. "You look nothing like her. And yet, like who?" "My wife, Eli's mother." His eyes burned brighter. "Tell me, Clara Whitmore, do you believe in reincarnation?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. I don't know. I believe in a lot of things I didn't believe in an hour ago." The king laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Honest. Evangeline was honest, too. He released her chin and stepped back. "You have two choices. One, I erase this night from your memory and send you home. You'll never remember my son, this palace, or the music. You'll find a new job and forget we exist. And two, you stay." His smile sharpened. "You continue working here, knowing what we are. You continue playing piano with Eli under my protection. But understand, the moment you betray us, the moment you speak of this to anyone, I will kill you and everyone you love, slowly, painfully, thoroughly." Clara looked at Eli. The boy was shaking, his hands clasped together like he was praying. She thought of Tommy, safe in their apartment. She should choose safety, should run and never look back. But she also thought of Eli's smile, his music, the way he'd clung to her like she was his last hope of light in an endless darkness. "I stay," Clara whispered. The king's expression was unreadable. "Why?" "Because he needs me." Clara swallowed hard. "And because I need him too." For a long moment, King Darius simply stared at her. Then he waved his hand and the world rushed back into motion. The vampire stumbled, confused. The woman in crimson spun around, searching for prey that was no longer there. Clara stood behind a veil of shadow, invisible, watching as the king addressed his court. "The gathering will proceed in the ballroom. Leave this room now." They obeyed without question, filing out in elegant silence. When the last one left, the shadows around Clara dissolved.
She stood alone with the vampire king and his blind son, and her life as she'd known it was over. The nights that followed were different. Clara still cleaned, still played piano with Eli, but now she felt eyes everywhere, watching from paintings, from mirrors, from the spaces between shadows. The palace had revealed its true nature, and she couldn't unsee it. Darius appeared more often now. Never close, always observing from doorways or balconies. His presence felt the air with electricity, dangerous. Clara tried to ignore him, but it was like trying to ignore a storm. On the 7th night after the gathering, he finally spoke to her. "Come with me." Clara looked up from the piano. Eli had fallen asleep against her, exhausted from our longest session yet. "Where?" "Somewhere you deserve to see." Darius moved forward and gently lifted his son into his arms. Eli murmured something in his sleep, but didn't wake. "If you're going to be part of his life, you should know the truth. All of it." They walked through corridors Clara had never seen, deeper into the palace's heart. Darius carried Eli effortlessly, and Clara followed, her pulse quickening with each step. They stopped before a hidden door carved with symbols that seemed to move in the torchlight. Darius touched it, and it swung open silently. Inside was a chamber that took Clara's breath away. The walls were covered in paintings, hundreds of them, all of the same woman, beautiful with golden hair and warm brown eyes, captured in moments of joy and sorrow and everything in between, playing piano, dancing, laughing, holding a baby with pale hair. "Evangeline," Clara whispered. "My queen," Darius said. "My wife, my destruction." Clara moved closer to the paintings. The woman did look like her, not in features, but in expression, in the way she smiled. What happened to her? The truth, or the version I tell myself so I can sleep? Darius stood before the largest painting, his back to Clara. 300 years ago, I was different, crueler. I ruled through fear and saw humans as cattle. Then I met Evangeline, a village girl who played piano in a church. She wasn't afraid of me, wasn't impressed by my power. She saw the man I'd been before the curse of immortality. She changed me, made me remember what it meant to be human. We married in secret, and against all laws of nature, she conceived. The Vampire Council was furious. They said a hybrid child would be an abomination. They demanded I destroy it. Clara's hand went to her mouth. I refused. But childbirth for a human carrying vampire blood is traumatic. Evangeline died moments after Eli was born. And in my grief, my desperation, I did something unforgivable. He turned to face Clara, his eyes haunted. I tried to resurrect her using forbidden blood magic, a spell that required the sacrifice of my own humanity, what little remained. What happened? The spell failed. She stayed dead, but the magic had to go somewhere. It poured into Eli instead, sealing his eyes shut before they ever opened. The cost of my arrogance was my son's sight. Darius's hands clenched into fists. He was born blind because I couldn't let her go. Clara felt tears on her cheeks. That's not your fault. You were grieving. It's entirely my fault. His voice turned sharp. And now I watch him grow up in darkness, rejected by my court, hated by those who should protect him. They call him weak, a mistake. They wait for him to die so a proper heir can take his place. But he's extraordinary, Clara said fiercely. He has more kindness in one finger than those monsters have in their entire bodies. Darius stared at her. You really believe that? I know it. He crossed the room in 2 strides, stopping close enough that Clara could feel the cold radiating from him. When you play with him, something happens. I've watched it through the mirrors. His eyes, they change. For just a moment, they clear. He can almost see. Clara's breath caught. What? Your music, your presence. Something about you resonates with the magic I used 3 centuries ago, the magic that was supposed to bring back Evangeline. His hand reached out, stopping just short of touching her face. Tell me, Clara, do you remember things that never happened to you? Places you've never been? A life you never lived?
I don't know. Sometimes I dream about this palace, about rooms I've never seen, about... She stopped, her voice breaking. About a man with sad eyes who I loved more than breathing. The distance between them evaporated. Darius's hand cupped her cheek, and despite the cold, Clara leaned into it. Impossible, he whispered. You said you're deciding something. About me. Have you decided? His thumb traced her lower lip, gentle as a prayer. Yes. And? You're dangerous, Clara Whitmore. More dangerous than any enemy I've ever faced. Why? Because you make me hope. And hope is the cruelest curse of all. The attack came on a night when the moon blood red. Clara was in the music room with Eli, teaching him a new piece when the first explosion shattered the east wing windows. The blast threw them both from the piano bench, glass raining down like deadly snow. Clara scrambled to Eli, pulling him close. His face was cut, blood darker than it should be trickling down his cheek. They're here, Eli whispered, terror in his voice. The rebels! Father said they might come, but I didn't think... Another explosion. The chandelier above them swayed dangerously. The doors burst open, and Darius appeared, his face transformed into something monstrous, fangs bared, eyes blazing like dying suns. Clara, take Eli to the North Tower, now. But... now. She ran. Clara grabbed Eli's hand and pulled him through smoke-filled corridors. Behind them, she heard screams, the clash of steel, sounds that weren't quite human. The palace was a war zone. They want Father dead, Eli gasped as they ran. Lord Constantine, he's been planning this for years. He says Father's gone soft. Says loving a human made him weak. They rounded a corner and stopped dead. 3 vampires blocked their path. Clara recognized one, the woman in crimson from the gathering. Her smile was pure malice. The broken prince, she cooed. And his pet human. How convenient. Lady Vivian, please, Eli said, his voice shaking. We're not part of this. You're exactly the point of this, child. Your father clings to power because of you. Remove you, and he crumbles. Simple mathematics. Clara pushed Eli behind her. You'll have to go through me. Vivian laughed. Gladly. She lunged. But before her claws could reach Clara's throat, a shadow exploded between them. Darius materialized like a nightmare made flesh, catching Vivian by the neck and slamming her into the wall with such force the stone cracked. Touch them, he snarled, and I will make your death last a millennium. The other 2 rebels fled. Vivian struggled, but Darius's grip was iron. The West Wing is burning, he said over his shoulder to Clara. Constantine brought 24 loyalists. I can hold them, but you need to get Eli out of the palace. There's a passage behind the library that leads to the village. And not leaving you, Eli cried. You don't have a choice, son. A roar echoed through the corridor. More vampires were coming. Too many. Darius threw Vivian aside and turned to Clara. His face was bloody, his coat torn, but his eyes held absolute clarity. There's a third option. One I swore I'd never offer anyone. Clara's blood turned to ice. No! Listen to me. He gripped her shoulders. If you stay human, you die tonight. Constantine will hunt you down to punish me. But if you turn, if you become one of us, you'll have the strength to protect him. To survive. Father, you can't. Eli's voice broke. The transformation! It's agony. You told me. 3 days of burning from the inside. I know what I'm asking. Darius's eyes never left Clara's face. I'm asking you to give up the sun. Your humanity, everything that makes you mortal. But in return, you'll never be helpless again. You'll be fast enough to outrun death, strong enough to crush those who threaten him, and you'll live long enough to watch over Eli for centuries. The walls shook. Fire was spreading, hungry and bright. Clara could hear Constantine's voice getting closer, promising death to all who served the weak king. She thought of Tommy, her sweet boy, who still believed in heroes. If she died tonight, who would protect him? Her sister in the next village might take him in, might love him enough. But Eli had no one else. Just a father fighting impossible odds in a court that wanted him dead. "Will it hurt?" Clara asked quietly. "Yes," Darius said. "No lies, no comfort. It will be the worst pain you've ever known. But I'll be there every moment. I won't let you face it alone." Clara looked at Eli. The boy was crying, shaking his head, begging her not to do this, but she saw the truth in his blind eyes. He knew what she'd already decided. "Do it," Clara whispered. Darius pulled her close, and for a moment she felt something impossible, his heart beating just once against her chest. "I'm sorry," he breathed against her neck. Then his fangs pierced her throat, and the world became fire. Clara screamed. Distantly she heard Eli sobbing, felt Darius holding her as she convulsed. Her blood was burning, her bones breaking and remaking themselves, her humanity tearing away like skin in flames. And through it all, a melody played in her mind. Evangeline's melody. "Welcome home," it seemed to say. "Welcome back." Clara awoke 3 days later in a world made of crystal and starlight. Everything was sharper. The threads in the silk sheets beneath her fingers felt like individual rivers of texture. She could hear a spider weaving its web in the corner, count the heartbeats of mice in the walls, smell the iron-rich earth miles below the palace foundation. And the thirst. God, the thirst! "Don't fight it." Darius sat beside her bed, looking more exhausted than she thought possible for an immortal. "Let it wash over you. Then let it settle. You're stronger than the hunger. You always were." Clara's new eyes found his face. She could see things she'd missed before. The faint scars along his jaw from some ancient battle, the way sadness lived in the corners of his mouth, the impossible depth of his crimson gaze. "Eli?" "Safe. Waiting for you." Darius helped her sit up. "The rebels are dealt with. Constantine is ash. The others who followed him scattered to the winds." His hand lingered on hers. "You've been asleep for 3 days, Clara. Your body needed time to complete the change. And my son, Tommy."
Pain crossed Darius's features. "I sent Corbin with money, enough for your sister to raise him well, to send him to university, to give him a life. He believes you took a position overseas. In time, if you wish, we can arrange for you to see him from a distance, but you can never—" "I know." The words hurt worse than the transformation. She'd made her choice, saved Eli, saved herself, but the cost was everything she'd been. Darius helped her stand. Her legs were steady, strong. She caught her reflection in the mirror across the room and gasped. The woman staring back was still Clara, but perfected. Her skin held a luminous quality. Her eyes glowed with subtle gold light. Her features had sharpened into something between human and divine. She was beautiful. She was terrifying. She was no longer herself. "Come," Darius said softly. "There's someone who needs to see you." They found Eli in the music room, sitting at the piano but not playing. The moment Clara entered, his head snapped up. "Clara?" His voice trembled with hope and fear. She crossed to him in seconds, her new speed startling her, and knelt before him. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here." "You smell different. Cold. Like father." Tears slipped down his pale cheeks. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. If I hadn't been so selfish, so lonely, you'd still be—" "Stop." Clara took his freezing hands in her own, now equally cold. "You didn't make me choose this. I chose it for you. Because in 3 weeks, you became more important to me than breathing." She smiled, though he couldn't see it. "Now we have forever. No more hiding. No more midnight goodbyes. Just us and the music." Eli threw his arms around her neck and sobbed. Clara held him, this strange, immortal child who'd stolen her heart, and let him cry. Over his shoulder, she met Darius's eyes. The vampire king stood in the doorway watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. Longing, grief, something that looked dangerously close to love. "Play with me," Eli whispered finally. Please. They sat together at the piano. Clara's new senses made the music overwhelming at first. Every note vibrated through her bones, every harmony painted colors in the air. But slowly, she adjusted, and they began. The melody was Evangeline's, the one Eli had played that first night. But now Clara understood it fully. Every note was a memory, a piece of the Queen's soul woven into sound. And as they played, something impossible happened. Eli gasped. His clouded eyes began to clear, color bleeding into the white like dawn breaking. Gold, brown, human. I can see, he breathed. Clara, I can see you. The light lasted only seconds before fading back to blindness, but in that moment, Eli saw everything. Clara's new face, his father's tears, the candlelight dancing across the walls. You're beautiful, Eli said, wonder in his voice. Both of you. The world is beautiful. Clara looked at Darius, and something passed between them. Understanding, acceptance, the knowledge that they were bound now, not by magic or blood alone, but by the boy between them, the music that connected them, the love that had transformed them all. Every note she plays reminds me that even monsters can remember what it meant to be loved, Darius said quietly, speaking to Eli, but looking at Clara. And in the candlelit music room of the Crimson Palace, the three of them played together, a broken king, a blind prince, and a woman who'd sacrificed everything for a child who wasn't hers. Their song echoed through the halls, a promise written in melody. This is family now. This is home. Forever.